Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Social Justice and Leadership presentation. Social Justice and Leadership members are Beth Boringshoff, John Borman, Lisa Cobb, Debbie Donnelly, Jessica Heyman, Margaret Long, Chelsea McFadden, and Kristen Williams. Our presentation objectives are to define and explain the key concepts of social justice, to synthesize the relevant literature and themes, and to provide examples of social justice and leadership in practice.
So today I'm going to cover 4 different concepts that relate to the overall theme of social justice. First, we need to define social justice. It's the recognition of inequities and the progress of redistributing wealth and power. It inherently requires activism because it cannot be solved through thinking alone. When we talk about inequity is the difference in ability to access what an individual needs to gain wealth and power, whereas inequality would be the fundamental differences in actual material possession. So social justice does not seek to solve the material inequalities, but rather the significant historical differences in access to resources. When we talk about oppression, we're talking about actions on both a macro level and a micro level that can cause damage and pain. This might occur in a discriminatory event on a micro level, but when we talk about macro level, we're talking about discriminatory policies that affect a group of people. And finally, the last concept that we want to describe is privilege. When we talk about privilege, it means that the mere existence of membership to a group can result in certain privileges, even if an individual feels they haven't experienced those privileges directly. And this is a concept that's really frequently misunderstood when we talk about social justice. So these are the 4 components that make up these concepts that we need to completely define before we can move on to other topics regarding social justice.
In the previous slide, we learned that social justice aims to address inequity through activism and emphasizes resolving inequitable access to resources. Since activism is necessary to overcome macro and micro oppression experienced by marginalized groups and individuals, how can individuals from privileged groups use their privilege to actively fight oppression? Allyship is a term that calls on members of privileged groups to become collaborators, accomplices, and co-conspirators in the fight against injustice and inequity by developing supportive personal relationships and engaging in public acts of sponsorship and advocacy. These actions, developing personal relationships and engaging in sponsorship and advocacy, require one to first take initiative to educate oneself about systemic inequality and the role they have played in perpetuating it. One must also reflect upon their own privilege and recognize the difficulties that marginalized individuals must overcome. Privileged individuals must then develop personal relationships with members of marginalized groups, continue to learn about the obstacles these individuals experience by becoming a confidant who listens to, empathizes with, and validates those experiences. Engaging in sponsorship and advocacy requires one to monitor for and recognize oppression in action and shut it down when it's seen or heard. Furthermore, building a community of allies who is working toward these same goals increases the impact of one's actions. Finally, mentoring a marginalized individual brings that voice to the table and opens the doors for more marginalized individuals to join the community. Classroom teachers, through their use of culturally responsive pedagogy, school leaders who recognize their privilege and facilitate and engage in critical discourse, and students who use their learning to become change agents are just a few groups who can become allies within all educational communities.
Culturally responsive pedagogy, as described by Ladson Billings, aims to promote academic success help students develop or maintain cultural competence, and develop critical consciousness to challenge the status quo. Hutchison and White, however, suggest integrating culturally responsive and social justice pedagogies. Culturally responsive social justice pedagogy addresses the social, political, economic, environmental, and equity issues that are connected to ethnicity, race, class, gender, age, ability, orientation, and culture in order to promote understanding of critical consciousness and civic engagement. Social justice education enables individuals to develop critical analysis skills to identify and understand oppression. More importantly, it allows them to understand their own position within oppressive systems. The development of leaders and educators with this capacity allows them to interrupt and change oppressive patterns of behavior that they or an institution they are a part of partake in.
Hello, I am Debbie Donnelly, and I will share with you social justice in leadership preparation programs. How can instructional leaders effectively support teachers and students in understanding the implication of social justice within our school system? In the article I read by Vogel, it talks about problems and program focus. Problem in educational leadership program includes preparing leaders for traditional roles, reinforcing the status quo, and not examining inequitable practices or reform issues. The program focused mostly on preparing school leaders, the critical approach to already established structures and norms, critical discourse, and recognizing personal bias and beliefs. What we have is a very limited or non-existent understanding of both the concepts of social justice and multicultural education, which is also reflected in the educational practices of educators. But what we need to do is look at moving forward. And in moving forward, some of the actions that we're calling for is developing leaders who should challenge institutional structures, create a venue for self-awareness and support to imperative changing practices, policies, and systems to understand social justice. We're also asking for open and explicit discussions and training and education preparation program. And all of this could help in supporting integrating race and racism into leaders, knowledge base, so that we can identify and confront those issues within the school setting. We can also discuss critical race theory and discussing theories such as the queer theory. But again, we're looking at ways to challenge our leadership preparation programs to support and encourage leaders going forward.
This research examined social justice-oriented teacher preparation in current sociopolitical context. The authors were concerned with preparing teachers to teach in with a social justice stance, and then them ending up working in places that did not feel the same way. And they also, wanted to make sure that their pre-service teachers were able to navigate schools that maybe did not support or align with the same social justice manifestations. So as you can see in this hierarchy, that they examined how to best support pre-service teachers and novice teachers, and that also includes supporting the mentor teachers in social justice initiatives so they can continue supporting new teachers. The findings from their research indicated that it's important to continue pre-service teacher social justice education into their novice years, and also to provide support for the mentor teachers in order to counter deficit orientation, leverage context-specific institutions, and navigate the bureaucracies and expose pre-service teachers to a range of contexts, to name a few.
In addition to teacher preparation and school leadership programs, opportunities for the alignment of social justice and leadership should exist in a variety of programs at the university level. Using the transformation leadership framework, universities can build student leadership through programs to develop skills to become leaders of systematic change in their community. One example that I explored is the Oaks Leadership Scholars from NC State University, and their mission from this program is to create change agents that receive opportunities to develop understanding of leadership and its necessary skills, develop systems thinking skills, and examine institutions and policies that shape our lives, increase knowledge of the grand global challenges facing society today, work with nationally and internationally known leadership and change agents, and develop networks students can use to facilitate their continued engagement as agents for change throughout their lives.
In summary, social justice involves both the identification of inequities and the process of distributing wealth and power to address historical differences and opportunities. It requires one to have a critical awareness of oppressions and privileges in order to take action and fight systemic inequality. Within the realms of leadership and education, there are multiple ways to promote social justice. As mentioned before, one way to do so is through allyship, which allows individuals to collaborate to promote equity and counteract injustices. Educators may employ culturally responsive pedagogy to teach with a social justice lens. Additionally, teacher and leadership preparation programs can help train individuals to approach education to address and correct inequities and power differences in society. Finally, student leadership programs at universities can help students develop skills to become change agents through social justice-oriented teacher prep. Social justice may be achieved through multiple means to ensure that educators and school leaders critically examine school structures, curriculum, instruction, and assessment to enable transformative and long-lasting change.
So in conclusion, social justice is a complex issue that can be attacked on many fronts: teacher preparation, student leadership, allyship, culture responsive pedagogy, and most importantly, leadership preparation.